Everyone warned her to stay away from the aggressive German shepherd, the one whose growls sent shivers down grown men's spines. But as the little girl stepped forward, her small hand reaching for the bars, no one could imagine what would happen. Next, a moment that would change all their lives forever. The animal shelter sat on the edge of town. One kennel, near the very end of the hall, carried a reputation that made even the most seasoned volunteers uneasy. A large red sign bolted to the bars read in bold letters, "Danger, do not approach." Behind those bars was Shadow, a massive German shepherd whose presence alone could silence the chatter of visitors. His coat was thick and black as midnight, but it was his eyes that unsettled people most. Cold, amber pools that seemed to look straight through a person's soul. When someone walked too close, a low growl rumbled from his chest, followed by a warning snap of powerful jaws. Rumors swirled among the staff. Some claimed Shadow had once been a guard dog, trained to attack without hesitation. Others whispered that he had belonged to someone cruel, someone who taught him that humans could not be trusted. No matter the truth, no one dared test the limits of his patience. New volunteers were always told the same thing: stay clear of Shadow's cage. He's unpredictable. We don't know what might set him off. And so, day after day, he lay in the shadows, watching the world pass by, alone. In his silent rage, it was a bright Saturday morning when a young couple stepped into the shelter, their daughter nestled between them. Her name was Lily, a delicate little girl with soft curls that bounced around her shoulders and a pink dress that matched the rosy glow of her cheeks. She clutched a stuffed bunny to her chest as she walked timidly past the rows of barking dogs today. Volunteer greeted them with a practiced smile, though her eyes drifted uneasily toward the back of the corridor. "Welcome," she said gently. "Feel free to look around. But please, whatever you do, keep your daughter away from the kennel with the red warning sign." Lily's mother nodded, thanking her politely, but Lily hardly seemed to hear. The moment they entered, she had felt something she couldn't explain, a tug in her small heart. She looked past the cages of wagging tails and hopeful eyes, her gaze drawn toward the shadows at the end of the hall as her parents stopped to greet. A friendly Labrador mix, Lily slipped her tiny hand into her father's pocket and peered down the corridor. Through the gloom, she glimpsed a pair of golden eyes watching her in perfect stillness. Instead of fear, she felt something else, sadness. "Mommy," she whispered, tugging her mother's sleeve. "Who is that dog?" The volunteer's face tightened. "That's Shadow," she replied softly. "He isn't like the others. He's dangerous." But to Lily, he didn't look dangerous. He looked lonely. While her parents chatted with the volunteer about adoption fees and vaccination records, Lily felt her curiosity grow stronger than her fear. She glanced over her shoulder, making sure no one was watching, then clutched her stuffed bunny tighter and took a careful step down the long hallway. Each footfall echoed in the hush, the barking dogs falling silent as if they sensed something important was about to happen. At the end of the corridor, Shadow lifted his massive head, his amber eyes fixed on the tiny figure approaching. A deep, rumbling growl vibrated in his chest, loud enough to make the other dogs shrink back in their kennels. But Lily didn't flinch. She stopped in front of his cage, her small face tilted up, her expression soft and searching. From the front desk, a volunteer turned just in time to see her. Her mouth fell open in horror. "Oh no, wait. Don't go near him," she called out. Her voice cracking, Lily ignored her. She reached up with one trembling hand, her fingers sliding through the iron bars. For a heartbeat, no one dared to breathe. Shadow's growl faded into an eerie quiet. His enormous body tensed, muscles coiling as if he were deciding whether to strike. Time seemed to slow. A chorus of frantic voices rose behind Lily. Her mother's scream, the volunteers' panicked footsteps racing closer. But all she could see were Shadow's sad, haunted eyes staring into hers. Then, in a moment that felt impossibly fragile, the giant dog lowered his head. Slowly, he pressed his cold, wet nose against the little girl's palm. The air went stilled. No one watching could believe what they were seeing. For several long seconds, no one dared to move. The volunteers stood frozen, bracing for the worst. But Shadow remained perfectly still, his powerful body no longer coiled to attack. His ragged breaths came in slow, measured sighs as he leaned into Lily's tiny hand, as though he had been waiting for this single touch his entire life. That Lily's father reached her first, his face pale. He crouched beside her, ready to pull her away. But when he saw the enormous dog resting his head in her palm, his voice caught in his throat. "Lily, sweetheart, come back here," he whispered, but she didn't move. That a volunteer swallowed hard and stepped closer, lowering her voice to a hush. "He's never let anyone touch him," she murmured. "Not once." Shadow shifted, pressing his nose against Lily's wrist. His golden eyes softened. A memory flickered in the volunteer's mind, and she found herself speaking without quite knowing why. "He came to us 2 years ago," she began, her voice trembling. "They said he was a guard dog for a man who hurt him. He didn't know kindness, just orders and pain." Lily looked up, her lip trembling. "But he's not bad," she said, her voice small but sure. The volunteer wiped a tear from her cheek. "No, honey, he's not bad. He's scared." Shadow let out a long, shuddering breath, as though releasing years of fear in that single exhale. And in the middle of the shelter's dim hallway, the little girl and the broken dog seemed to understand each other without a single word. It wasn't rage that had filled those golden eyes all this time. It was sorrow, aching, endless sorrow that only a child's compassion could finally heal. The shelter had never been so quiet. One by one, the other dogs calmed, as though they, too, felt the change in the air. Lily's mother knelt beside her daughter, her hands trembling as she reached to pull her away. But Shadow didn't lunge or bare his teeth. He simply lifted his head and watched them with an expression that almost looked like hope. "He's not dangerous," Lily whispered, her eyes wide and shining. "He just needs someone to love him." The volunteer who had told them to stay away dabbed at her eyes. "You might be right," she said softly. "Maybe he's just been waiting for someone who wasn't afraid." The shelter director arrived, having been called by panicked staff. He took in the scene, this massive, battle-scarred dog leaning trustingly against a little girl, and let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "In all my years," he said hoarsely, "I've never seen anything like it." Lily's father looked at his wife, then at Shadow, who now sat calmly, his ears relaxed. "I know this is sudden," he began, voice hesitant, "but maybe he belongs with us." The volunteer's eyes widened. "You want to adopt him?" Lily nodded, her hand still resting against Shadow's fur. "He's my friend now," she said, as though it was the most obvious truth in the world. Papers were signed with hands still shaking from the miracle they'd witnessed. When the kennel door finally swung open, Shadow didn't rush out or bare his teeth. He stepped carefully into the hallway and pressed his giant head against Lily's side, a silent promise that he would never hurt her. And just like that, the shelter's fiercest dog walked out into the sunlight, free. Months later, Shadow was almost unrecognizable. His coat had grown glossy, his eyes bright and gentle. In the backyard of his new home, he chased butterflies with Lily, their laughter and playful barks filling the air. Neighbors who once whispered about the dangerous dog now smiled as they watched him bound across the grass, free at last. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and the extraordinary bonds we share with animals.